Hidden One, a short story by L. Adams Beck. The heroine of this story was a princess of the great Mughal dynasty of emperors in India. She was granddaughter of Shah Jahan and the lovely lady of the Taj Mahal, and daughter of the Emperor Aurangzeb, whose fanaticism was the ruin of the dynasty. The princess's title was Zeb-un-Nissa, Glory of Women. She was beautiful and was and is a famous poet in India, writing under the pen name of Makhfi, the Hidden One. Her love adventures were such as I relate, though I have taken the liberty of transferring the fate of one lover to another. For her poems, which I quote, I use the charming translations by J. Duncan Westbrook, who has written a brief memoir of this fascinating princess. She was a mystic of the Sufi order, and her verses, The Hunter of the Soul, which I give, strangely anticipate Francis Thompson's Hound of Heaven in their imagery. The poems not specified as hers are a part of my story. The office of Hakim, physician, to the Mughal emperors being hereditary in my family from the days of Babur, the conquering emperor, I was appointed physician to the Padshah known as Shah Jahan, and when His Majesty became a resident in paradise, may his tomb be sanctified, my office was continued by His Majesty Aurangzeb, the Shahin Shah, and rooms were bestowed on me in his palace, and by his abundant favor the health of the Begums, queens, in the seclusion of his mahal, was placed in the hands of this suppliant, and I came and went freely in my duties, and was enlightened by the rays of his magnanimity. And my name is Abul Qasim. But of all that garden of flowers, the begums and princesses, there was one whom my soul loved as a father loves his child, for she resembled that loveliest of all sweet ladies, her father's mother, she who lies buried by Jumna River in the divine white beauty of the Taj Mahal. May it be sanctified to her rest. In my princess's sisters, it is true I have seen a flash now and again of that lost beauty, but in her it abode steadfast as a moon that knows no change, and at her birth she received the name of Arjamand, after that beloved lady, whose death clouded the universe so that its chronogram gives the one word, grief. But the child also received the title of Zeb-un-Nissa, Glory of Women, and such this resplendent princess most truly was. And surely the prayer for resemblance was granted by the bounty of Allah, for she grew into womanhood dark, delicious as a damask rose, enfolding the hidden heart of its perfume in velvet leaves, a soft, luxuriant beauty that stole upon the heart like a blossom-bearing breeze and conquered it insensibly. Of her might it be said, For the mole upon thy cheek would I give the cities of Samarkand and Bokhara. And a poet of Persia, catching a glimpse of her as she walked in her garden, cried aloud in an ecstasy of verse, O golden zone that circles the universe of beauty, it were little to give the earth itself for what thou circlest. Yet this surprising loveliness was the least of her perfections. But how shall this suppliant, who is but a man, describe the spell of her charm? Allah, when he made man and laid the world at his feet, resolved that one thing should be hidden from his understanding, that still for all his knowledge he should own there is but one searcher of secrets. And the heart of this mystery is woman, and if she be called the other half of man, it is only as the moon reflects the glory of her lord, the sun in brilliance, though, as a wise Hindu pandit told me for truth, she has a cold and dark side which is always unknown to him, where alone she revolves thoughts silent, cold, and dangerous. Therefore to sift her in her secrecies is a foolhardy thing, and not in vain is it written by Aflatun, Plato, the wise man of Greece, that the unhappy man who surprised a goddess bathing in the forest was rent in pieces by his own hounds. Yet this feat must be attempted for, if there is a thing it concerns man to know, It is the soul of this fair mystery who moves beside him and surrenders heaven to him in a first kiss and the bitterness of the hells in a last embrace. Therefore I essay the history of this princess, the glory of women, who was an epitome of her sex in that she was beautiful, a dreamer, a poet, and on the surface sweet in gentleness as a summer river, kissing its banks in flowing, but beneath, I write, seeing her intelligence clear as a sword of Azerbaijan, her exalted father resolved that his jewel should not be dulled by lack of polishing and cutting, and he appointed the wise lady Mirabai to be her first teacher. At the age of 7, she knew the Quran by heart, and in her honor a mighty feast was made for the army and for the poor. As she grew, aged and saintly tutors were appointed, from whom she absorbed Arabic, mathematics, and astronomy as a rose drinks rain. No subject eluded her swift mind, no toil wearied her. Verses she wrote with careless ease in the foreign tongue of Arabia, but hearing from an Arab scholar that in a single line the exquisite skill betrayed an Indian idiom, she discarded it instantly because she would have perfection, and wrote henceforward in her own tongue, Persian. No pains were spared upon this jewel, for the emperor desired that its radiance should be splendid throughout Asia, yet her limit was drawn, and sharply. For in her young pride of learning, she began a commentary on the Holy Koran, and hearing this, he sternly forbade it. A woman might do much in her own sphere, he wrote, but such a creature of dust may not handle the divine. I, Abul Qasim, was with her when the imperial order reached her and saw her take the fair manuscript and obediently tear it across, desiring that the rent leaves be offered to the shadow of God in token of obedience. But those dark and dangerous eyes of hers were not obedient beneath the veiling of silken lashes, and turning to me, to whom she told her royal heart, she said, "What the hand may not write, the heart may think, and in the heart is no emperor. It is free." And leaning from the marble casement, she looked down into the gliding river and said no more. Yet the emperor made amends, and noble, as far as his light led him. Not for a woman the mysteries of the faith of Islam that he held of all things the greatest, but fired by the praises of her tutors, he sent throughout India, Persia, and Kashmir for poets worthy of this poet-princess, and bid them come to Delhi and Agra, and there dwell, that a fitting company be made for her. So, veiled like the moon in clouds, curtained and attended, the Princess Arjamand was permitted to be present at tournaments in the palace where the weapons were the wit and beauty of words, when quotations and questions were flung about as it might be handsful of stars, and a line given be capped with some perfect finish of the moment's prompting and become a couplet unsurpassable, and very often it was the soft voice from behind the golden veil that capped the wisest and completed the most exquisite, and recited verses that brought exclamations from the assembled poets. Not even Saadi, may Allah enlighten him, nor Jalaluddin Rumi, may his eyes be gladdened in paradise, excelled this lady in the perfumed honey of their words. So with one voice they cried, and this was not homage to the daughter of the protector of the universe. No, indeed, for death has not washed out her name with the cold waters of oblivion, and now that she is no more beautiful nor daughter of the emperor, her verse is still repeated where the poets and saints meet in concourse. It will be seen that her life in the Begum Mahal, the palace of the queens, must needs be lonely, for there was none among the princesses who shared her pleasures and their recreation in languidly watching the dances or buying jewels and embroideries and devouring sweetmeats wearied her as sorely. But she had one friend, Imami, daughter of Ashad Beg Khan, and this creature of mortality who writes these words was also accounted her friend, though unworthy to be the ground whereon she set her little foot. Day after day did the Lady Arjamand with Imami write and study, and the librarians of the emperor had little peace because of the demand of these ladies for the glorious manuscripts and books collected by her ancestors from all parts of the earth. They sat, and the walls echoed to the low note of her voice as she read and recited, and so beautiful were the tones of my princess that I have seen the water stand in the eyes of those who heard her recite her own verses or those of the great Persians. It was a noble instrument ranging from the deepest notes of passion to the keen cry of despair, and I would listen unwearied while the day trod its blossomed way from dawn to sunset in the palace gardens. Great and wonderful was this new palace of the emperor, with tall lilies inlaid in the pure marble, in stones so precious that they might have been the bosom adornments of some lesser beauty. Palms in great vases brought by the merchants of Cathay made a green shade and coolness for two fountains, the one of the pure waters of the canal, the other of rose water, and they plashed beside a miniature lake of fretted marble rocks, sunk in the floor, where white lotuses slept in the twilight of the calm retreat. Such was the chamber of the daughter of the Padshah. But of all the jewels, the princess was the glory. Surely with small pains may the great mogul's daughter be a beauty, but had she been sold naked in the common marketplace, this lady had brought a royal price. Torquay and Persian and Indian blood mingled in her, and each gave of its best. The silken dark hair braided about her head was an imperial crown. From the well-beloved lady who lies in the Taj Mahal, may Allah make fragrant her memory, she had received eyes whose glance of slow sweetness no man, not even the men of her own blood, excepting only her stern father, could resist, and of her rose-red lips half sensuous, half childlike, might it be said. Their honey was set as a snare, and my heart, a wandering bee, clung and could not be satisfied, tasted and returned home nevermore. The imperial Mughal women were indeed the jewels of the world, because the beauties of Asia were chosen to be their mothers. The net of the emperors swept wide, and I, who in virtue of my age and faithful service have seen, testify that there was none like them, and the loveliest of all was fit but to serve my princess kneeling. Shall not the truth be told? Of the soul within that delicious shrine her deeds must tell. Now, as I have written, she sat with Imami by the little lake, and I in a marble recess by one of the great latticed windows that looks down on Jumna River, and on the other side over the city of Shah-Jahanabad, new and luminous in magnificence. In all the world else are no such palace and city. At this moment she read aloud a letter from her father Aurangzeb concerning the memoirs of her ancestor, the Emperor Babar, who founded their dynasty in India, a book written by his own hand and religiously preserved in the Mughal archives, and she read it with anger, because when she demanded this book from the librarian, the Padshah hearing wrote thus: Happy daughter of sovereignty, there is one manner of life for men who are the rulers and for women who are the slaves. It seems you go too far. What has a daughter of our house to do with our ancestor Zar-ud-Din Muhammad Babar, the resident in paradise? I have granted much already. Plant not the herb of regret in the garden of affection. He writes as a man for men. The request is refused. Recall the verse of the poet: Ride slowly and humbly, and not in hurrying pride, for over the dusty bones of men the creature of dust must ride. What an emperor writes is not suitable for the princesses of his house. His duty is rule, theirs obedience. It was a discouragement, but a command, and another had laid the finger of obedience on the lips of silence. But taking counsel with her heart, this princess did not so. She called to me for her pen and wrote in answer, Exalted Emperor, Shahinshah, Shadow of God, King of the world, refuge of the needy, Father of the body of this creature of mortality, be pleased to hear this ignorant one's supplication. Surely you have fed my mind on the bee's bread of wisdom, and from your own royal lips have I learnt that the words of our ancestor, upon whom be the peace, are full of flavour and laughter, generous and kind, shining with honour and the valour of our family. Now, since this is the root whence sprang your auspicious majesty's rule, should not a humble daughter triumph in it? True is it that I am your female slave, yet may this worthless body bear one day a son, to transmit your likeness to the prostrate ages. And since we do not breed lions from lambs, his mother should carry the laughter and fire of her race like a jewel in the mine of her soul. I make my petition to the Padshah, the holiest of emperors. It will be granted me, said the princess, reading these letters aloud to Imami and to me, because of that last word, the holiest. He values that title more than to be called the Shahinshah, and with all my heart I would it were otherwise. And why, high lady, cried Imami in sheer astonishment, surely the Padshah is a saint, and his deeds and words will shine in paradise. It is blessed to be devout. I know little of paradise, but I know, and my father might know if he studied the life of Akbar the Great, his great-grandfather, that to be so bitter a saint in our Mohammedan faith that he insults and persecutes every other is to break our dynasty to powder. Consider of it, Imami, as I do. Have you read the acts of Akbar Padshah, the greatest sovereign that ever reigned? Were I emperor in India, thus and thus I would do. Glory of women, may your condescension increase. What did Akbar Padshah, said Imami, joining her hands. But I said nothing because I knew. Though he was born Moslem, yet he honoured all the faiths, knowing in his wisdom that the music is one, and the dogmas but the foolish words that man in his ignorance sets to it. All faiths are true, and none. The blood almost fell from my face as I heard her, because had these words been carried to the emperor, not even her rank, not even her daughterhood, could have saved the princess. With Imami and me she was safe, but in a palace a bird of the air may carry the matter. Yes, she went on, laughing coldly, Akbar Padshah had in all ways the taste of Solomon the Wise, and his Begum Mahal, Palace of the Queens, was a garden of beauty. But observe, the queens were chosen from every faith, and each had the right to worship as she would. There were Indian princesses who adored Shiva, the great god, and Krishna, the beloved. There was the fair Persian who worshipped the fire, as Zoroaster taught, and there were ladies of the faith of our prophet more than can be counted, whereas in the Zanana of my imperial father— She paused, and Imami continued with gravity that concealed a smile. The Begums recite the Holy Koran all day, as becomes the ladies of the emperor who says that he sighs for the life of a Fakwa. And would he had it, cried the princess with passion, for every day discontent grows among the Hindus that are taxed, beaten, and despised only because they hold the faith of their fathers. Is there one of them employed about the court or in the great offices? Not any, whereas the Emperor Akbar, in his deep wisdom, made them as one with ourselves, and thus built up a mighty empire that my father, with holy hands, destroys daily. O brilliant lady, for the sake of the prophet, be silent, I said, for indeed she terrified me by her insight. It is better for a woman that she should not know, or knowing, keep silence. If these words were carried to the Padshah, I should at the least be imprisoned and never more see the light of day. Well, one may be a devotee out of the faith as in it, and like Akbar Padshah, I am the devotee of truth, who shuts her fair eyes on no faith that men hold in humbleness of heart. And were it policy only, is it not madness to disgust and terrify the countless millions of the Hindus upon whom our throne is carried? The end is sure. What is the end? Asked Imami in a whisper. Misery for himself, though that matters little, for he will take it as the robe of martyrdom from the hand of Allah, but ruin for the Mughal Empire in India. Oh, that I were a man! Her face lit up into such pride and valor as she spoke that I wished it also, for I knew that her words were true as truth. But in India, a woman can do nothing. It is little wonder I trembled for my princess. A picture of her imperial father lay on the low table at her elbow, painted by a Persian artist of fame, and beautiful as a jewel in its small, brilliant colors. And looking upon it, one might see the kismet of the emperor in every feature. Eyes stern but sad, the narrow brows and close lips of the man who sees not life as it is, but as his own thought of it, bounded by those high, narrow brows that overweighted the lower part. The head of the emperor was surrounded like that of a saint with a golden halo, and his stern eyes were fixed on some vision invisible to others. The jaw was weak but fine, and of all dangerous things on earth, beware the strength of a weak man in the grip of his belief. The princess looked at it, and then at me. The emperor, may Allah enlarge his reign, should have lived in the time of the prophet and have been the sword in his right hand. He is born centuries too late. It is policy now that carries all before it. Oh, could I speak my mind to him, for my brothers dare not, but he and I are worlds apart, and in his presence I am silent. I sighed. Not his throne, nor his children, nor his women, nor aught on earth weighed for one grain of sand against the pearl of the faith. True is it that the Emperor Akbar followed the vision also, but with eyes how wide and clear. Knowing this for certain, that mortal man cannot know, the truth is a bird flying in the skies, and lets fall but a feather to earth here and there. So he made for himself a faith that held the quintessence of all the faiths, and had his sons been like to him, but past is past. They were not, and they broke his great heart. So I said, bowing very low, Princess, when the happy day comes that you must wed, you shall make your lord lord of the world with your wisdom. She laughed, but bitterly. Oh, I have lovers. For one, Suleiman, my cousin, son of the brother, whom the emperor slew because he stood too near the throne. By report I knew what he was, but I saw him and spoke with him. My princess? And how? I asked in great surprise, knowing that his presence in the Begum Mahal would have been death. She looked at me with large, calm eyes. My faithful servant, have you come and gone so long about the Begum Mahal, and have not known that all things are possible? Prince Suleiman was veiled like a woman, and like a woman he stood where you sit, and I saw his face, and we spoke together. Should not cousins meet who may be man and wife? And I have loved his father, Prince Dara, very much, who was learned and good. I trembled again when I heard, for had the emperor guessed that she had done this thing, what hope for her? His 3 brothers had he slaughtered, and the Prince Suleiman was doomed. And he saw your face, O brilliant lady? No, and not for fear's sake, but because I liked him not at all. He said, O envy of the moon, lift up your veil that I may enjoy the marvel of your beauty, and I sang this verse I had made to my lute. She caught up her lute that lay beside her and sang, I will not lift my veil, for if I did, who knows? The bulbul might forget the rose, the Brahman worshipper, adoring Lakshmi's grace, might turn, forsaking her, to see my face, my beauty might prevail. Think how within the flower, hidden as in a bower, her fragrant soul must be, and none can look on it. So me the world shall see. only within the verses I have writ. I will not lift the veil. And the fool caught me and would have torn it, she added, but Imami restrained him, and he flung from us like a woman in temper as in dress, a contemptible creature. But, Lady of Beauty, what had you against him? Do I not know all that goes on in this city? Do I not know that Prince Suleiman spends his days and nights in Shaitanpur, Devilsville, the quarter of pleasure, and was I to show my face to a man reeking from the embraces of the bazaar? No, I am Makhfi, the hidden one, and hidden I will remain for such as he. I will be no rival to Peri Mahal the dancer, and her like. And even as she ended, a low voice at the curtain that veiled the entrance asked for admission, and when she granted it, the heavy silk was drawn aside, and a tall, veiled woman entered. The princess did not look up, but I saw Imami's eyes fix as if startled. Her slave prays for a word with the marvel of the age, whose mind is so lovely that it outshines even her fair face, and her face so beautiful that it is the lamp that permits the light of her soul to shine through. "Warm for a woman," said the princess, and looked straight at the newcomer, who stood salaaming with the utmost humility. She added impatiently, "There is no need of this ceremony, lady. Remove your veil. The good physician Abul Qasim is privileged to see the faces of all in the Begum Mahal." In a flash, the veil was torn off, and a man's face appeared beneath it, young, bold, and handsome, with the high features of the imperial house. A splendid, dissolute young man, with the down black on his upper lip, like the black astride the young swan's bill. Prince Suleiman, the son of Dara, the emperor's brother. "Ha, daughter of my uncle," he cried. "Did I not wager, did I not swear, that I would see that hidden beauty, and now I see it face to face. Poets have sung it, and painters praised it, but their words and their colors were lies, for they could not utter the truth. And having seen, I entreat for my father's sake, for love's sake, that it may be mine." He made towards her eagerly, wholly disregarding Imami and me. I looked to see her confused or angry, but she spoke with a most misleading calm. "Exalted cousin, you have won your wager and your bride. If her embrace is cold, it is at least constant, and cold, with those burning lips of rose, those glowing eyes. O loveliest, divinest, grant me one kiss for earnest, if you would not have me die at your feet." I saw her sign with her hand to Imami, who glided away, flattening herself against the wall as if terrified. Then she spoke serenely. "Exalted cousin, when were you last in Shaitanpur?" It stopped him like a lightning flash. He stood arrested on the marble before her face. "I know nothing of Shaitanpur," he said, breathless. "No? Nor of the dancer Peri Mahal and her house with the courtyard of roses, nor of the song she sings?" Again she caught up her lute and sang in a low voice, "Black bee, strong bee, the honey-eater, plunder my perfume, seek my heart. Cling to me, ravage me, make me sweeter, tear the leaves of the rose apart." He stared, his eyes slowly dilating. That the daughter of the emperor should sing the song of the bazaar, the song of the light women. Then it emboldened him. He threw himself forward to seize her hand. "Maker of verses, this is a rose of your own garden. Till now I never heard it, but it speaks of love. You shall not ask me twice. My rose, my pearl, my star." He caught the hem of her veil. Now I knew well from her eyes that he rushed on his fate, but it was written in the book of his destiny, and what is written who can avert? She drew back a little and looked at him with soft eyes, wells of delicious darkness, the swelling curves of her lovely form, a temptation for true believers, and her lips smiling a little as if from delight at their own sweetness. And indeed, her voice was gentle as moonbeams and as caressing, as though she could sacrifice all to please the man whom she exalted with the sight of her. "Fortunate cousin, I am a weak woman. How dare I face the wrath of the emperor? He did not love your father. He does not love your father's son. Yet if he did—" She drooped her head a little, as if with a soft shame that overwhelmed her in the depths of modesty. O very woman, divine, yet a child. She had turned wisdom into folly with a glance. And he, trembling and with eyes fixed, stammered out, "Alas, I have dreamed of your sweetness, and what is the dream to the truth? I am drowned in it. Oh, give it to me, make it mine, that in life and death it may enfold me, and that I may never again behold a lesser light, having seen the ineffable." And he caught her hand passionately and drew her towards him, she yielding gently and slowly, resisting a very little, and looking at him as if with compassion. And very softly, in a voice like the breathing of a flute, she said, "Oh, my cousin, how should we face the wrath of the emperor?" As though all her soul were in that question. And he, kissing her hands with frenzy, said in broken words, "Ah, moon of my delight that knows no wane, let me but watch with you through the starry hours of one night, and then, if the Padshahs will be to slay me, I shall at least have lived." "And I also," she said, looking down like the feminine incarnation of modesty, so that enraptured he flung his arms about the yielding softness of her most exquisite form and kissed her on the lips as a thirsty man in the desert grasps the cup, nor can sever his mouth from it. And when he would permit her to speak, she leaned her head backward to gain space, and she said, "What is my lord's will with his slave, and in what shall I obey him? Now I, standing in the recess, would have warned him if I could, that not thus, oh, not thus, does the proudest and wisest of women abandon herself to such as he. For I had pity on his youth and the manly beauty of him and the imperial blood that he shared with her. But who was this creature of dust to obstruct the design of the imperial princess? And indeed, even I wavered, and was uncertain that I guessed her meaning. With such veiled, submissive sweetness did she hold his hand in hers and touch it to her lovely brows. And trembling like a man in a fever, he replied, "O darling little slave, since you give me the right to command what is wholly mine, I say this. Let my slave, whose slave I am, expect me tonight, when the moonlight touches the western corner of the divan I am, and I will come to this chamber of bliss, and my life, my soul, are in the hand of my slave, whose feet I kiss." And throwing himself on the marble like a worshipper, he kissed the flower-soft feet that showed like bare gold beneath the hem of her robe, and so, rising to his knee, looked up at her as an idolater at the goddess vouchsafed to his eyes. But she looked beyond him at the curtain that veiled the door. It lifted to a hidden hand, and Imami stood there, ash-pale, in her hand a dish of gold, and standing upon it a great goblet of jeweled glass with pomegranate sherbet brimming in it, rose-red and rose petals floating on the surface, and beside it 2 cups of gold flashing with diamond sparks. And on her knee she offered it to the princess, who took the goblet and a cup, smiling. "Fortunate cousin, since this is so, and I, my father's best beloved child, will petition him to grant me my heart's desire, let us drink the cup of betrothal in the presence of the Hakim Abul Qasim and the Lady Imami. Heart of my heart, I pledge you." And setting the blossom of her lips to the jeweled rim, she drank, and filled the other cup for him, and still kneeling before her, breathless with adoration, he took the cup in both his hands, and I watched, and could say no word, because her purpose was clear to me, and I knew well that of all women on earth, she was the last to endure the insult of his presence. And Imami knelt by the door, her face like ivory against the heavy gold curtain. Now, as he set his lips to the cup, suddenly Imami sprang to her feet and tottered back against the sculptured marble, and with scarce breath to fill her voice. "The Emperor comes," she said, and fell again on her knees at the door, hiding her face in her hands. I saw the sickening terror that struck the color from the cheeks and lips of the lover. He knelt there with a glassy countenance, like a man in the clutch of a nightmare who cannot flee from the advancing doom, his limbs weighted with lead, his heart with the pressure of an exceeding horror. But Glory of Women caught him by the hand. "Exalted cousin, there is but one way from these rooms, and the Emperor closes it. Fly to the room beyond my bedchamber, the room of the marble bath, and hide where you can while I hold him in talk. Allah Hafiz! God protect you! Go!" And she pushed him from her, and he fled. Then, most singular to see, she composed her veil, glancing in the mirror set in silver that was the gift of the Portuguese priests, and turned to the door, and as she did so the curtain was lifted, and Aurangzeb Padshah entered, and Imami prostrated herself, and I also, but the Princess Arjamand knelt. Now I know not how this should be, but in a room where great events have just happened, it is as if the waves of passion beat about the walls and waft the garments of those who have been present, and it seemed to my guilty heart as though the very flowers enamelled on the marble cried aloud, "Majesty, there is a man in hiding." And certainly the Padshah halted and looked with suspicion from one to the other of us. He was ever a man of suspicion, unlike the easy humour of his father, Shah Jahan, and the half-drunken good nature, shot with frightful angers, of his grandfather, Jahangir. Aurangzeb Padshah was a small man, dark exceedingly, with veiled eyes and shut lips, and never have I seen him warmed by any emotion of love, pity, fear, but always calm, cold, self-collected, and austere. For it is well known that his only care was religion, and to this he sacrificed his all. So looking hard at the kneeling Glory of Women, he said coldly, "In the name of the most beneficent and merciful God, what is this disturbance? Speak, exalted daughter, princess of the family of chastity. It is revealed to this suppliant at the throne of Allah that there is a hidden thing in these chambers. Speak, what is it?" And kneeling, my princess answered, "May joy attend my exalted father, the adorner of the gardens of happiness, the decorator of the rose parterre of enjoyment. There is but one hidden thing in these chambers, and it is your unworthy daughter, who is known by your august favor as Makfi, the Hidden One." I saw the eyes of the Padshah fix on the golden dish that lay on the marble, with one cup emptied of the pomegranate sherbet and the other half emptied, the sherbet running in a red stream like blood along the marble. "This was set down in haste," he said through clipped lips. "In haste, O glory of Allah," said the princess, with the wet beads clamming the silken tendrils on her forehead. I drank, and was about to drink the second, when your auspicious feet blessed the threshold. "You are thirsty, happy daughter of sovereignty? Then drink the remainder. You have my permission." I saw the gleam in either black eye of him as he spoke, watching her sidelong. She lifted the cup to her lips with a hand that shook, so that it rattled against her teeth, though she struggled to command herself. "No, do not drink, royal daughter. It is stale," he said, still standing and smiling coldly. And the princess answered with quivering lips, "Will not the mirror of God be seated and partake of refreshment offered by the hand of his slave?" "Not of that cup, and not until I have observed your embroideries and manuscripts, daughter of high dignity," the Padshah replied, and followed by my princess Imami, still kneeling by the door, and I, by the latticed marble window, he walked about the hall and into the chambers beyond, talking pleasantly to the princess at his shoulder, and so returning took his seat on the divan, and she served sherbets and fruits on a golden dish to his majesty. He was later to attend the Amkars, the Hall of Audience, and was attired kingly. His vest was of white and delicately flowered satin with heavy silk and gold embroidery. His cloth of gold turban was aigretted with diamonds, great as stars, with a topaz at the base that shone like the sun. A chain of great pearls hung to his knees, and above all these jewels was his cold, repelling dignity, as of a king too great to be approached even by the favourite child of his pride, and all the time he sat, she knelt before him. At length he spoke, as if in meditation. Glory of women, you have grown into beauty like that of the maids of paradise. Your long lashes need no antimony, your eyes are winter stars, and in that robe of gulnar, pomegranate blossom, you appear like that princess who bewildered the senses of the mighty Suleiman. I saw a quiver pass over her features as she bowed her head beneath the weight of praise. Does not the rose long for the nightingale? Does not your heart, exalted daughter, turn to love? And with her eyes on the ground, she answered, Exhibitor of perfection, my heart is set on far other matters. If in this land of good fortune I be remembered as a poet, I ask no more of destiny, save that the rank of the daughter of emperors be attached to my name forever. And he, It is well, yet marriage must be considered. Fortunate daughter, have you bathed today? And she, deadly pale, Shadow of the benignity of the Creator, no. And with set lips, he called to Imami by the door. Hasten, lady, and light the fire beneath the great vessel of water in the bathing room of the Begum, and I will remain in discourse with her until it is ready. And Imami, casting a fearful glance on the kneeling princess, moved slowly to the inner chamber, and it is the truth that my soul sickened within me, for though I knew the young man worthless and the son of a dangerous father, yet who could bear this without terror of spirit? And the emperor, laying aside his awful majesty, made his presence sweet as sunshine in the great chamber of marble, saying, Exalted daughter, it is but seldom we have leisure to relax, and yet the olfactory of my soul inhales with delight the ambergris, perfumed breezes of affection and concord, and daily, if it were possible, would I enjoy them. Yes, even when absent, I sit beside thee in thought, and my heart is at ease, for that is a union not followed by separation's pain. It is in my mind to move with my ladies and the living family of dignity and glory to reside for a time at Lahore, and we shall then be more together, partaking of the irrigation of the rivers of affection. Great Father, you promise me a joy to increase health and exalt happiness. She swayed as she knelt and leaned against the divan with closed eyes. Exalted Father, the perfume of flowers and of the rosewater fountain have given me a faintness. May I retire for a moment with the Hakim Abul Qasim to my inner chamber, lest I fall at your feet. It is granted, glory of women, and the Lady Imami shall recite to me your latest verses until you return. I came forward, making the salutation, and helped the princess to rise, she leaning on my aged arm, and the Lady Imami took her place, unrolling a manuscript of verses splendid with Persian illuminations in blue and gold. The emperor composed himself to listen with pleasure, for it is well known that all the sovereigns of that mighty line were skilled in versifying and just critics of ghazal and suja. And as we moved forward, I supporting her, the princess breathed in my ear, I meant his death. But Allah, knowing my heart, knows I am innocent of this hideous thing. O Abul Qasim, father of my soul, is there aid in earth or heaven? But what could I say? Only the great physician of the hidden dispensary could assist that unfortunate. And meanwhile, the sweet voice of the Lady Imami read aloud the verses of the princess. O love, I am thy thrall, as on the tulip's burning petal glows, a spot yet more intense of deeper dye, so in my heart a flower of passion blows. See the dark stain of its intensity, deeper than all. And then we lost the words as we moved into the inner chamber. Now, this inner chamber was all of pearl-pure marble, and in the midst a deeply sunk bath of marble, long and wide, and with its walls decorated with lotuses and their leaves. And a silver pipe led the water to this from a mighty silver vessel 6 feet and more in height and of great capacity, supported on a tripod of sculptured silver, and below it a place for fire, enclosed and fed with sweet-scented woods and balls of perfume made of rare gums. And, O Allah most merciful, there the Lady Imami had kindled fire by command of the Emperor, and within might be seen the brilliant blue flame, licking up the perfumes and crawling like snakes about the cedar wood below the vessel. And certainly I looked that the princess should do some desperate deed for the enlargement of the man most miserable, hidden within the vessel, and releasing her, I stood like a graven image of terror, expecting what she would do. She laid her hand on the silver, and amid the crackling of the flames, she said in a clear, small voice, "You came unsought. You violated the secrecy of the Hidden One. What then is your duty, exalted cousin?" And from within he spoke in a voice, "O Allah, most compassionate, grant that I may never hear such again." The one word, silence. And she, "It is true. Keep silence if you are my true lover, for the sake of my honor. For if your voice is heard, I am a dead woman. But I too will be faithful to death." And he answered, "On my head and eyes." And by her command, I gave her water to drink and applied an essence to her nostrils. And we left the room, pulling the heavy curtains before it, and we returned to where the Padshah sat with the pale lady Imami reading aloud, and he smiling in calm content. Seeing us return, he motioned my princess to a seat on the divan, saying, "I would hear your verses of the lover. What is the fate of a lover? It is to be crucified for the world's pleasure." And taking the manuscript from the hands of Imami, she read aloud, "Dust falls within the cup of Kaikobad, and King Jamshid nor recks the world if they were sad or glad, or what they did. How many hearts, O love, thy sword hath slain, and yet will slay. They bless thee, nor to Allah they complain at Judgment Day." And so read on steadfastly for the space of an hour, until the Padshah, replete with the sweetness of the melody, rose from the divan and said graciously, "May the tree of hereditary affection, watered by this hour of converse, grow in leaf and fruit and overshadow us both in peace. Go now, exalted daughter, and bathe your angelic person and rest with a soul sunned in the favor of the Emperor." And he went, we attending him to the door of the secluded chambers, and when we returned, the princess lay in a dead faint on the divan, and the fire beneath the great vessel of silver was red and silent, and within was silence also. The courage of Baba the gallant and Akbar the greatly dreaming was not dead in their descendant, and thus, in a great self-sacrifice, he became a traveller on the road of non-existence, and I wept for him. So the court moved to Lahore. But after this on my princess came a change hard to be told. She had despised the prince alive. For his death she loved him, and with a poet's passion and tenderness mingled with a woman's. Her sole relief was in solitude, pouring forth the burning thoughts, wherein the phoenix of her soul was consumed in perfumed flame, which will forever kindle the heart of man to like ecstasies. Great princes sought her, among them Akil Khan, a most beautiful young man, aglow with courage and splendor. He had seen her, dreaming on the roof of her pavilion in the dawn, pensive and lovely, clothed in dawn color, her long hair braided with pearls falling about her, and mad with love, he sent her this one line, awaiting completion. A vision in crimson appears on the roof of the palace. Kneeling, I implored her to give him some solace. For, O light of my soul, said I, the years drift by like leaves, and shall this miracle of beauty and of intelligence, clear as diamonds, lead its graces to the grave, and leave the world no copy? My princess, have pity on your youth. True, the high prince died a hero for the sake of a lady's honor, yet remember that until then, the soul of him was at home in Devilsville, and not in the rose gardens of Allah. You have mourned him long enough. Awake now to joy. But she put it gently aside, saying, the soul washed in the lustration of death is pure. What is Shaitanpur to him now? He has forgotten it. And shall I, who accepted the sacrifice, forget? Oh, that I had not failed in courage, that I had died with him. Give me the paper of Akil Khan. And considering the line he had written, a vision in crimson appears on the roof of the palace. She wrote beneath it, this line completing the couplet. Neither supplications nor force nor gold can win her, and so returned it. Yet, gallant man as he was, this did not stifle his hope, and knowing that in her garden at Lahore she was building a noble marble pavilion, he entered the garden one day, disguising his princeliness under the garment of a mason, carrying his hod on his shoulder, and passed where she stood apart, watching her girls who were playing at Chowza. And as he drew near, he whispered, in my longing for thee, I have become as dust, wandering round the earth. And she, whose soul was fixed as a lonely star, responded immediately, if thou hadst become as the wind, yet shouldst thou not touch a tress of my hair. So it was always. An embassage was sent from the Shah Abbas of Persia, entreating her hand for Mirza Farooq his son, and the prince came with it, a gallant wooer. She dared not at once refuse the insistence of her father Aurungzeb Padshah, and consented that he should come to Delhi that she might judge of his worthiness. And with a glorious retinue resembling a galaxy of stars he came, and she feasted the prince in the pleasure pavilion in her own garden, and in its marble colonnade with her own fair hand offered him wine and sweetmeats, but veiled in gold gauze, so that not one glimpse had he of the hidden eyes. And exalted with wine and folly, he asked for a certain sweetmeat in words which by a laughing play on words signify a kiss. This to the proudest of women. One moment she paused, and then haughtily, ask for what you desire from the slaves of our kitchen, and so went straight to her royal father, and told him that though face and jewels were well enough, the man had the soul of a groom under his turban of honor, and she would have none of him. She had her royal way. Raging with foiled pride and desire, he sent her this verse, I am determined never to leave this temple. Here will I bow my head, here will I prostrate myself, here will I serve, and here alone is happiness. But he beat against marble, for she returned this answer only. Child, how lightly dost thou esteem this game of love? Nothing dost thou know of the fever of longing, and the fire of separation, and the burning flame of love. Alas, her heart knew them too well. So he went away despairing, and that was the last of her suitors. Very sad grew my princess. The dead have more power than the living, and the clutch of a dead hand chills the blood. She had the soul of a mystic, and in her poems desire for the eternal beloved was mingled with love of him, who was now also behind the veil of non-existence, and I know not which was more in her thoughts when she wrote with tears that fall and falling gather, O idle arms, never the lost beloved have ye caressed, better that ye were broken than like this, empty and cold eternally to rest. O useless eyes, never the lost beloved for all these years have ye beheld, Better that ye were blind than dimmed thus by my unavailing tears. O fading rose, dying unseen as hidden thou wert born, so my heart's blossom fallen in the dust was ne'er ordained his turban to adorn. Very strange is the heart of a woman. I, remembering her scorn for this very prince and her will to slay him with her own hand, could not at all commend nor comprehend her passion for him dead, whom living she trod as the dust beneath her feet. She permitted my speech gently, but would reply only, "He loved me and gave his life for me." And I venturing to rejoin, "But, O exalted lady, men will give their lives for a little thing, a jewel, a worthless intrigue, the slaying of a tiger, and is his sacrifice worth such a return as yours?" She replied with calm, "Greater love hath no man than in silence to lay down his life uncheered by commendation or the joy of battle, and to him I swore fidelity. Should I change? In his death was the high heart that in life would have grown to glory, and I broke it." And I said, "It is greater love to live for a woman than to die for her, and this he could never have done, for his profligacy and selfishness would have swept all love to ruin." And she, smiling, put this by, as one who has attained in her own heart to behold the innermost secrets of love. And which of us was right, I cannot now tell. But as love rose about her like a tide, her thoughts turned more and more to the supreme, the self-existent, and this love also consumed her, for he wounded her heart with the august secrets of his beauty, and perceiving in vision wafts of his sweetness, she sank into a deep melancholy, desiring that to which no earthly passion may attain. So in this poem, she beheld him as the hunter of the soul. "I have no peace, the quarry a hunter chases me, it is thy memory. I turn to flee but fall, for over me he casts his snare, his perfumed hair. Who can escape thy chain? No heart is free from love of thee." So passioning for the divine, she spent her days in longing, and a great wisdom came upon her, for even as her mighty father narrowed in vision, persecuting the Hindus and breaking the very empire against the rock of their tortured faith, so she, like the sun, at setting illumined all beliefs, even the lowliest, with her level rays, declaring that where any prayer is made, that place is the mosque and the Qibla. Had that lady been emperor, it is not too much to say she had saved the empire. Would to Allah that she had been. But he knows all. Yet a better fate was decreed for her, for she lived, exhaling love as the lily its perfume, and departed in a white peace, a gently fading light, like the cresset that for a little illumines the quiet of a tomb. And this she said in dying, "I am the daughter of a king, but I have taken the path of renunciation, and this shall be my glory, as my title signifies that I am the glory of women." This she is, for in India she is remembered by all who burn in the fire of love, human or divine. Yet, since she was a woman, and therefore a creature of unreason, must I condemn her passion for the worthless prince to whom her royal life was dedicate. And here I set down the last words that Makfi, the hidden one, wrote with her dying hand, and they were these. "Yet, Makfi, unveiled is thy secret, abroad all thy passion be told, who saw not the beauty of Yusuf when he in the market was sold. And as she lived, she died, lamenting that too late she had known his hidden heart. When she was departed, a poet of Persia made these verses of her, concerning the serenity of her spirit. Love sings to himself of love, and the worlds dance to that music. As wise snakes dance to the charmer playing upon his pipe, love gazes on deep waters, forever dreaming his face. slay all my senses, but hearing that I may immortally listen. Calm every wave of my soul, that it may mirror the dream. And her father the emperor, grieving, made her a glorious tomb of marble, domed and pinnacled with gold, and the tower and miners roofed with turquoise tiles. Nay, the very sand of the paths was dust of turquoises, and about it a glorious garden where her sweet spirit might gladden to dream in the moonlight, her griefs forgotten, her joys completed in the ecstasy of union with the one, the alone. And yet, thus wrote my princess, if on the day of reckoning, God saith, in due proportion I will pay, and recompense thee for thy suffering. Lo, all the joys of heaven it would outweigh, were all God's gladness poured upon me, yet he would be in my debt. May the lights of Allah be her testimony, and make bright her tomb. For I loved her, and pray that her memory may be fragrant when I am dust. And very strange and secret is the heart of a woman.